Hey everyone. So we're gonna finally start adding the hair, and we're gonna start indenting. But first, I want to give you the patterns that we'll be using for the indentations. And like I said, the hair on the mane is it's a bit different than any other hair. So the patterns that we'll be using is this. It's the squiggly lines. So we'll start off straight, and then we'll make them wavy. I mean, we'll have some loose hairs, but basically we'll be following like this pattern. So okay, let's imagine the hair starts here. This would be one strand, and then we'll have another strand of hair coming up from this side, and then it meets at the tip. Another hair strand starts here, and it meets at the tip, and so on. We're gonna have one that comes out this way, one comes out this way, and then we'll start another clump of hair, another group of hair, here, here, and here, here. And this is basically the main difference between the other types of hair. It's usually straight. It's not completely straight because it curves. But there's a difference between this hair and this hair. And that's what makes a lion's hair look the way it does. It looks fuller and it's frizzy. Just makes it look thicker. And it's because of these wavy hairs. And that's the pattern that we're going to be using for when we start indenting. And we're going to first start off with thinner hair, and for that we'll be using this stylus, which is the needle. And like I mentioned on the previous video, we're going to start with a layer that's the lowest layer, which is this one, layer 1, and we're going to start down here. And we could even separate these layers into even further layers. So we can have one layer here. We'll make a line just to show that layer. So we could have so this line right here separates these layers. So this would be one layer, and then this at the top would be another layer. And before I start indenting, I usually have a lamp on the side. For me, it's this side. And the reason I have that is that it makes it easier for me to see the indentations. Once I start indenting, it makes it easier because the indentations cast a shadow, so I'm able to see the indentations. Okay, so let's start. Another thing, you're gonna see me flipping the drawing. And the reason I do this is because it helps me see the drawing from a different perspective, a different angle, which helps me see different patterns in it. Okay, so let's start with the first indentations. Like I said, it's just a wavy. It's a pattern that we're going for. This hair is gonna be dark. It's gonna be black hair, not completely black. There's gonna be some black hairs, and so it's almost like a dark brown. So we're not gonna be adding too many indentations. I hope you can see the way I'm adding the indentations. Again, I'm making them random, and they're not all going in the same direction. I have some going right, some going left, some going straight down, but still keeping the wavy pattern. Like I said, there's gonna be some deep shadows here, so I don't want to add too many hairs here. See, now that I added these hairs down here, these ones at the top are gonna overlap these ones down here. So I can start up here, and then once it gets down here, I can curl them this way. See, hair tends to clump up. And when I say clump, what I mean is as individuals' hairs, they come together and they make these groups of hairs. Here, let me show you here. So you would have an individual hair growing in this direction, and then you have another individual hair, and it groups together, and then you have another group, another single hair, another, and another, and another, and together they make this clump of hair right here. And then you would have another clump of hair here, and another coming this way. Basically, you have individual. That's what hair is. You have single hairs that clump together, that make these groups of hairs. I'll post this image up so you can see what I'm talking about. Then you see those groups of hairs. Those are clumps. That's what I call them, clumps of hairs. And when we are indenting, we're keeping that in mind, that the indentations also group together. So then when we start adding highlights, we can bring these clumps of hairs out. So that's what I'm following here. Following the same pattern, but I'm also adding these, keeping in mind these clumps of hairs. Again, it's important not to make the hairs completely straight, because then it's just gonna look like spaghetti, and it won't look realistic. You gotta make the indentations random. In a previous video, I explained the importance of understanding what you're drawing, and this is, when it comes to hair, that's the most important thing. You need to understand what you are drawing. I could teach you the techniques, but if you don't understand hair, the way hair behaves, it's going to be hard for you to put it into use. Because you can learn this technique and you can make the indentations, but if you don't know why you're making the indentations, then it's just going to end up looking like scratches on paper, and you don't want that. You want the hair to look natural. So whenever I'm making these indentations, I'm seeing a lion's hair. I can imagine where they are, where the individual hair should go, and that comes from my understanding of hair. I'll post a link on the description below for you to see a video that I made about that, about the importance of understanding what you're drawing. Because the more you know about something, the more detail you can add to your drawings, and that in detail means more realism. Again, I'm going in different directions because hair grows is random. Hair grows, it could be affected by different things on the body, the way the lion moves, wind, so many things. We need to capture that frizzy look that a lion's mane has. Again, I'm following that same pattern that I showed you at the beginning with pencil. Straight and then wavy, straight and then wavy. Keeping in mind those clumps of hairs. And then from that clump, you could have a single hair that strays out and then overlaps other hairs. That's another thing, overlapping. Overlapping hair is important because it separates the hairs, and it gives the drawing much more depth. So when you start adding shadows, it'll be easier for you to identify these layers. See, so this on here would be one layer, like the layer that's at the bottom, and then these hairs, these layers, this huge layer here, it's going to overlap the hairs below. But the technique for drawing a lion's mane is just that. That's the main difference between this type of hair and regular hair, let's say for a wolf or any other animal, is that it's frizzy. And to get that effect, you need to make the indentations wavy. And then later on, this will be the first layer. And then after, we'll add thicker hair. And we'll be using a thicker tip. And that tip is going to give us a thicker indentation. And that's going to suggest individuals' hairs coming together. I don't know, let's say a couple of single hairs that come together and make a thicker looking hair. And then we'll add those over these. And then in the end, we'll go back and we'll alternate between adding single individual hairs with this and the thicker stylus. And then we'll randomly go all over the mane and just add them, because if you look at a picture of any animal, you'll notice these individual hairs that are out of place and they overlap the hairs around it. Okay, so we're done with the first layer. So we have this layer, and then we're going to move to layer number 2, which is this layer here. This layer is going to overlap this layer down here. And then after that, it's going to be layer 3. And then layer 3 is going to overlap over layer 2 and layer 1. And it makes a difference going in this order, because if we start from layer 3, that's going to be the layer that's going to be at the bottom, and just it won't look natural. So that's why it's important to understand which layers are at the bottom and which are at the top. Okay, so we're going to start with layer 2. Again, following the same guidelines that we did at these flow lines we added at the beginning. And we'll have a couple that curve this way, a couple of hairs that come down this way. It's just to suggest that these hairs are overlapping these ones on here. Again, if this is your first time here, don't feel discouraged if you don't understand this. Like it comes down to practice. The more you practice, the easier it's going to be for you to understand the technique. But the technique is actually the easy part, because you need to understand how to use it and where to use it, and that comes with you understanding how hair behaves. And like I always say, like, I could teach you techniques, but you need to understand where to use it and how to use it. So we're gonna go along the edge. So basically what we're gonna be doing is we're going to add this layer here along the edge to the top, and then we'll add another layer that's gonna overlap the layer below it. And these hairs are gonna be a bit longer, but are gonna overlap the first layer. And then the ends, so this starts off straight, wavy, and then the ends we're going to curl them a bit, just to give the mane more of a frizzy look. And it's important to keep them close, because if the indentations are too far apart, that means any space in between them are shadows, and it's almost going to be like if there's too much space in between, it's almost going to be like a bald spot. So the more indentations you add to a certain area, the thicker the hair is going to be. Like I said, I'm keeping them random. And this is really important because it makes the hair look so much more natural. So you have it down, then it curls out. You have some going this way, some going this way. Just don't make them too wavy. Okay, you guys, so we'll stop right here. We'll continue on the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, so you don't miss the next part.